Hello, welcome everyone to the Global Summit I Am Possible, an event to inspire you to have the courage to be who you are, and together so then we can create a heart-centered revolution and create believe in the impossible. So my name is Mar Guerrero. I'm the founder of Almakemi, and today I have the pleasure of having here Tami Brunk, who is an empath, air visionary, shamanic astrologer, and also an active dreaming teacher. And I'm very excited to start the summit with her because we share a similar vision. And it's a very dear vision from my soul and my heart. And I'm looking forward to see our connections and then how we together can believe in the impossible. So welcome, Tami.
Thank you, Mar. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so excited about your vision. So close to my heart, as you say.
Yes, so let's start with what is your vision, and then I will also share mine, and then like see where it takes us from there.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so a number of years ago, when I was first studying to become an active dreamer through Robert Moss's program, I had an incredible opportunity that was presented through a woman who has become a dear friend, who had spent many years in Haida Gwaii, which is a little tiny island between Victoria, or Vancouver, British Columbia, and Alaska. It's this little tiny island where the Haida indigenous people live. That is their native place. And this friend had lived on the island for many years. She had been gone for a little while, but she had a dream, a night dream, where a Haida grandmother had come to her and told her that she needed to have people, a small group of people, enter a portal of fire, and from that portal to go and visit Haida Gwaii, the island, and to together on the island to dream a new world, a new reality. This was the dream that this friend had had. So she shared this dream with a very small group of us, and she invited us into that vision, that dream that she had had. There were 8 of us. And so when I re-entered that dream, in my vision, what I saw was I entered the portal of fire. I went to Haida Gwaii. I saw it incredibly vividly. And I entered, there was a long house, a hut, which is what the Haida people, that's how they live traditionally. And I went in, and she was sitting at a little table. And she had a little bowl that was filled with water. And she invited me to look into the bowl of water. And there's a word, it's scrying, which is like you look into a crystal ball and you see things, you see visions. And that's what she asked me to do. She said, this is a practice for you to do every day. And she said, look in the bowl of water. And I saw these headlines, like news headlines rising to the surface. And they were impossible things that no one would think could happen. Like Israel and Palestine reach peace accord, or the world's oceans biodiversity increased by 20%, or more numbers of jaguars are now found in the wild than ever before. So all of these impossible headlines came to the surface, and I saw them. And so this was a practice that she gave me. Now fast forward a year, and a group of us, 5 of the 8, traveled literally to Haida Gwaii. And we spent time there with the grandmothers who were there, and with some of the communities. And we did dreaming work with them there as well. So I have a very deep love of that culture. But that vision that I saw and I felt was very strong. And from that, I ended up creating almost like a little curriculum, and also a group, because it so deeply inspired me, this idea that we could practice looking for proof that what we think of as being impossible world events, it started with world events happening, could happen. And then over the next years, I saw You know, Pope Francis was an amazing, you know, reality. Having the first Black president in the US was something that nobody ever thought could happen. All of a sudden, we had these reports that we had more elephants, you know, showing up in Buffalo were coming back to the US. So all of these impossible things. So I helped people train their minds to look for proof that what we think is impossible is happening every day. And that was in a very kind of 3D reality, middle world sort of way. But I started to invite people to do that personally as well. So that's how that vision first came.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. Like it's one of these, is one, like I'm getting chills all the time. So there is so much energy in it.
Yeah,
And
right.
so I would love to share mine. It has been in stages. Like, and it's not only like one grandmother from a culture, it's like from different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel pieces of grandmothers have been returning to me. And like I did a sacred marriage course with shamanic astrology, and I was supposed to marry my masculine, but the energy that came was more a grandmother energy, that I became like a tree, and it was like owning that before the second, like before marrying the masculine. So it's been very interesting how with my Capricorn moon has been, that is squaring my Mars and everything basically. So it's like first retrieve this and then the rest can come. And the vision that is similar to yours and different, and that's the magic of everything, is I was in Teotihuacan last year, no, well, 2 years ago in this case, 2019, and November, December at the end. And I was doing a shamanic breathwork training with the pyramids just there. Like we were doing breath work, like around 50 people from all over the world, and the pyramids were there. And there was a moment that I was looking at the room and seeing everyone and the energy of everyone. And I thought, only with these people, we could change the world. And there was so much energy in that. It's like, there's so much power only in this room. And not power to force things, power to just be who they are. Like I could just feel it. And it's like, why don't we do it? But then in my last breathwork journey, that day, I got like a visit of my grandmother. And she was also like with a bowl. And in this case, it wasn't water, it was herbs. And she was teaching me how to connect the herbs with the planets and the sky. And I was crying for like 2 hours after that breath work because I just miss her. In this life, I haven't had a grandmother energy in my life. I only had one living grandmother and she was quite detached. So it was like missing this energy of a wise elder who is just with you all the time and who just knows how life works in this reality.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like, I'm with you all the time. Like she was saying that, like, is there, I'm here. And then during this year, it has been a lot, because another vision within that training, it was the courage to be visible. And we did a journey with the shadow, and the journey was kind of like I was thinking that I was going to retrieve, like, I don't know, like complaining or broken, kind of like that's my shadow, right? And no, my shadow was the shining queen. And it was owning that. It's like owning that you can be visible. And then the summit has come, and the vision for the summit. So it's very interesting how everything weaves. And interviewing people, what I keep seeing is that following that magic of the signs that just take you to one place, and then there is so much there that we cannot have if we try to control everything.
Yeah.
And it's something that keeps coming with every interview. So it's like, this is the first day and we are going to set the intentions for the whole summit for every person to watch the videos that they feel called to watch without the mind saying, this is what I'm being always interested.
Yeah.
Just like I try to put people together to inspire what is already inside, and then just allow the magic of the oracle of internet, right? Like,
Yeah.
to bring you the message that we need to
Yeah.
hear, and then to believe in the impossible and to believe that we are possible, because I feel very strongly that every human being has the missing piece that we need to make a better reality in this earth, not in another plane that we will go afterwards. Like, I'm okay with that, but I'm not there yet. I'm here. So
Right.
it's like, we are here. Let's enjoy this. Let's enjoy this earth. Let's enjoy who we are together. So yeah, it's amazing how we can believe in the impossible.
Yeah.
And there is so much energy there, right?
There's so much. Thank you. I love so much of everything you're saying, and I absolutely also can feel all that energy and the love for that grandmother. When you talked about that, I think this is also a conversation about grandmothers, because as you said when we were talking before you even started recording, you know, that is a big connection between us, is just this vision specifically, but also, as you know, my work with Venus Alchemy with Kaylin Castell, that was very much guided by the grandmothers. And from the beginning of doing that work together, we began to, I began to see grandmothers when I had several friends who were very, very ill. And what I started to see was that I could visit them in the hospital and I would ask their grandmothers to arrive and be with them. And so, for example, my brother was getting surgery and I invited his grandmothers to come, and they were Asian. It was so interesting. They were Asian. And then I had another friend who got brain surgery and she is Jewish. And I had asked her grandmothers to come, and they arrived, and they were these adorable little Jewish grandmothers, you know, just as you would think. But when they would show up, when they would arrive, these grandmothers, they were so nourishing and funny, as you've said. But the grandmothers, they're so present, they're so real, and they so want to work with us right now. And so I love that that's the doorway through which, one of the doorways through which this arrived. It's very powerful.
Yeah, and that doing things that are grow corn, right? Like, it's whatever we are putting energy into it. It's like, is this going to be good for the 7 generations? That idea that is solid, and also that redefinition of Capricorn. And like, I have talked about this with Daniel G. Marius. So in that interview, we talked also about that, because it's something that is very important. It's not that well known in Spanish. So if people who are into astrology are Spanish speakers, I feel very called to also share this wisdom of like a different version of how to do culture. Because at the end of the day, it's also the sign of culture in this reality, right? Because then we move to Aquarius, that is the beyond. And then Pisces, everything. But Capricorn is the last one that is really like this reality. What do we do with it?
Yeah, beautiful.
So.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. I feel that the culture, Capricorn as culture creator, is so powerful to work with. As we're speaking, the moon is, of course, in Capricorn, near Pluto and Jupiter and Saturn. I've been doing work with Astro Hub and did a course recently on composting culture with the cardinal signs, and especially Capricorn, right? But I was saying and seeing that we are all death doulas, if you know what that is, that term. We're like death doulas for the dying culture, and we're midwives for the new culture that's emerging. And it's the grandmothers and grandfathers who help us do that. You So how powerful that you've taken this mantle and that it's to be fun, because that's the energy I feel behind what you're doing. And what you've said, that the grandma, they're not just these serious old ladies, they're fun, they're playful, they have a good sense of humor.
Yeah. Yeah, in one of the other visions that I have, because I've been doing a lot of work also with Egyptian mysteries and alchemy, like alchemical healing.
Yeah.
And as Sarah Indigo, she will be also sharing one journey to the Egyptian mysteries that are very important for me. And the grandmothers kept showing, like in a showing up in one and another one and in a cave. And in one of them, because I have all this work, kind of like sacred work, I don't know, force that is like, come on, keep going. And my grandmother was singing to me Hakuna Matata. It's just like, but seriously, it was like that dream of just like, yes, of course, do your work, but enjoy the process.
Yeah. Have fun while
Have
you're doing
fun.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's something that I need a reminder a lot of times. Yeah. And it's so interesting what you're sharing about the composting culture, because all my planets, except the Mercury, they're all personal, and Jupiter and Saturn, they're all in cardinal signs. I have a T-square in all of them have Jupiter and Saturn in Libra. I have Aries, Mars, Venus, and the Sun in Aries, and then the Moon in Capricorn, all in a T-square. So then, of course, I've been teaching Spanish in Thailand, and I was doing my PhD in culture awareness, like how when you learn another language, you just see reality in a different perspective. Yeah. And that is an invitation that for me is very important for everyone. Learn new languages. Because you will just open your awareness about reality in so many ways. And new languages can be tarot, can be astrology. Yeah. It doesn't have to be learn Chinese. That also, but then when it's a speaking language, there is also this natural expansion of who you truly are, because there are things in your own culture that you thought they were the only possibilities. Right. And then when you move, like me, living in Thailand for 10 years, it's just like you just see how things are done in the other side of the world. Yeah. Yeah. And then that we are a human tribe. There are no borders. They are artificial. There are no borders. They are not. So how can we start thinking about that, feeling that, dreaming that there is not, and with COVID has been very interesting, because I was seeing the reality in the States, in Spain and in Thailand, because I live here. My family is in Spain, and my friends, so I know what is going on there from first experience. And then in the States, because I'm following so many like astrologers and people on podcasts and teachers. And there was this idea that our country is the one that is suffering the most. Wow. And it's seriously not. Like, of course, for instance, the COVID situation has been worse in Spain than in Thailand, but Thailand is suffering other things. So it's so interesting to kind of like see how can we dream a world where we are really more connected, and where there is not these labels also of like, I'm this color or I'm this religion. It's like this one, of course you are, but you are also more than that. Yeah. No, it's this dream. And I would love you to talk about the earth part and the environment more, because I don't have anybody else in the summit talking about that. And I think it's also like a very important part of your work, right? Like the earth and the ecology and environment.
Absolutely. Before that though, I want to really briefly just also say something I've created in the last year is the Earth Sky Woman podcast. And I had a big summit as well. And it's called Earth Sky Woman because It's very connected to what you saw in your vision with the grandmother. Because one of the things I feel is so important is that people who have tended to be more sky people, I think of sky women, you know, like when we start to, if we've been studying astrology and metaphysics and being very spiritual and maybe also very intellectual or academic, it can be very much up here, right? And then we have other people, other women who are earth women, you know, so they're herbalists or they're permaculture designers. They're very earthy, grounded in those ways. And many of us have both qualities, but my feeling was that there's the need for many ways. And I would say also earth women can be just the woman who's a single mom trying to raise her kids, and she doesn't really have the bandwidth to think about metaphysical things, right? And often it's her, she needs more magic. She needs more sky. She needs more oxygen. And often sometimes I see that it's the priestesses in my goddess circles who are like, you know, it might benefit you to spend some time connecting with plants, you know, and it might benefit you to, you might really enjoy doing more womb healing right now with abdominal massage or yoni steams with herbs or whatever, and that can heal. Because to me, it felt like what wants to happen is reconnecting those aspects, right? Feels really, really powerful right now. And your vision really like gives me chills too, because I feel like it speaks to that as well. Planets and plants have very deep connection in these. And of course, any of that sky, earth connection, it meets here. But to answer your question specifically, you know, I've been a naturalist and a wildlife biologist. That's my background, an environmental writer before I really deeply dove into astrology. And even before that, I mean, plants were my first language. I grew up on the land. I learned all the herbs and plants. I was homeschooled. So I would make acorn pancakes, and I learned to make wild ginger tea and all these things with the plants. And I was very close to the land, very close to the ground. And then when I was in college, I was so lucky because I got involved in a group where we brought people to the Navajo, to the Dene reservation to live with to stay with the elders, the grandmothers actually, on that reservation, and to learn about what was happening with coal mining, because these traditional people were getting pushed off their land because they were taking their coal and they were taking their water. So this was when I was like 20 years old. I was taking students there to stay with these traditional families who didn't even speak English and learn about what was happening on the land, so that then we could tell other people about it and try to make those elders visible so they wouldn't get pushed off the land, right? So, and then I was getting a degree in wildlife biology. I was studying birds. I was, and so after that, I was an educator and a naturalist for years. But also I always worked with Indigenous people from that point forward. And so I've always had a deep love for the earth, and I've had some periods where I've been more in an activist role, and other periods, and also just a voice for the land, you know, that I love so dearly. So then I made an enormous life change, right? This was when I was in grad school. I was studying environmental writing with beautiful writers who were a voice for the lands where they lived, more activist, you know, also learning about policy and how to create nonprofits. It was this whole thing. I wanted to like save the world, right? Like, and this when George W. Bush had been elected, or when we went to war in Iraq here in the US, it was really a difficult time. And I was soul searching, and I'd always been an idealist, and I'd always believed that positive things could happen. But I was very dark at that time, and I was really questioning. I asked myself for the first time in my life, is it possible that the earth, that the indigenous, that the feminine will not win, will not survive this? I mean, I literally, my heart was so troubled in that time. I asked that question. And it was a difficult period, but it was at that time that I started to begin studying with a woman who was she was a indigenous métis, half white, half indigenous woman. I studied shamanism with her. And I was finding, instead of being so drawn to creating nonprofits and writing and advocacy, I started seeing that more than anything, all the writers I was reading were Indigenous. And what I was realizing is that more than anything, I wanted to help to awaken within non-Native people the kind of consciousness where, like Native people, we would look at the sun and or the moon, and we would say, that's our relative, you know, that's our grandmother. Or you would look at the stream and you could see the spirit of that woman who is that stream, right? Or you would sing songs to these things and you would speak to the stars again. Like I just knew, right? I get chills as I say it now, like in my bones, this is who we are originally at our root. We have this relationship with the living universe. And I knew in my bones that that's how change would happen. And at the same time, I was privileged to be part of a small group of women who got to go to Jackson Hole in the Tetons, a beautiful part of the US in the mountains, to be with this elder woman, another grandmother. She was part of the conservation movement. She and her husband, Marty Murray was her name, they had been responsible for getting Anwar, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, a beautiful place up near, in Alaska. They had helped to make sure that that land was protected. So there was a small group of women, myself, Marty Murray, we got to meet. And in that gathering, we were all environmental, we were studying, we wanted to be leaders. They were trying to help us become leaders in the environmental movement. And we were doing deep work in retreat to say, who am I and what is my role in the environmental movement? And we had these books we were reading, we had speakers speaking to us. And I kept feeling like, I don't know who I am here. Like, I don't know what my role is. And finally, I started reading about two people. Helena Norberg Hodge, she was a woman, a linguist who went to Ladakh, which is like another little Tibet. And she was the first woman to learn the language. And she lived in Ladakh before it was influenced by Western culture. And she wrote a book called Ancient Futures, where she showed what happened to that culture when all of a sudden the doors of the world were opened to that country and they were influenced by modern culture. And so she basically was this amazing person who helped to show the great sensitivity of the indigenous soul in each of us and in culture to the modern world, and how it is that we could heal that. So there was her. And then there were these visionary, like, women who were like futurists, who were looking at what might happen in the future. So I was trying to find myself, and I couldn't see myself except through those kinds of strange people. I wasn't your average environmentalist. That's not where my soul was leading me. So I ended up then, two women in those years when I was in graduate school in Montana, two women who I saw as leaders in the environmental movement. While I was there, they both quit their work and became astrologers, which blew my mind, and it opened my possibilities, right, to something new, because I'd always loved astrology. And so not long after that, I started studying with Daniel and moved to New Mexico and began studying there. But there were many years where I was in a very strange position of doing work with nonprofits and with Indigenous youth and environmental work, and writing articles about environmental projects, but at the same time building my astrology practice. And there's been a split in me between those two worlds, right? Like, and it's a very tender place, because I do believe in doing things on the land. I do believe, I love the front line. I went to Standing Rock, and as many as possibly 600 different tribes were there, and I deeply honor the work of the frontline activists. And at the same time, that's not necessarily my role, right? But in terms of I am possible and what's possible for this earth, what I always look at is more, again and again, I go back to, for me, I think I was introduced to the idea of the eagle and the condor, which is a prophecy, right, that emerged from near Peru in South America. And that's a story about the people in the South and the people in the north. The people in the south are the Condor people. The people in the north are the Eagle people. That includes the US and Mexico and Canada. It's like the mind is the eagle and the heart is the condor. And that story has to do with this being a time where those two peoples are supposed to come together and create a new culture, right? And when I learned that story, because I went to an amazing event and helped to organize an event near Cusco, near Machu Picchu, this was in 2003, while I was in grad school, actually. I learned that prophecy. Later, I learned about white buffalo calf woman. I'd already known about the rainbow, the Hopi prophecies. So for me, more and more, I believe that maybe because I live here, I think Turtle Island, or what in the South they say Abya Yala, I think this region is ground zero for culture change. I think we are the place where it's, especially the US, the culture change, the composting is so radically needed, and it's time. And I think it's the indigenous people, the voices of indigenous people that are needing to become more amplified. And also that we, each of us, it's important to find the indigenous grandmother and grandfather who live inside of us. And so we can begin in our way to perceive of the world as alive and conscious and sentient and as our relatives, and have an intimacy with this earth and the land where we live, so that we will love it so much that we have to shift our culture. You know, I think that's where it's at. So that's a long story.
No, but it's absolutely perfect. And I really like, I want to do the journey, like you're going to take us to this wonderful grandmother. But before that, I do need to say this, because you were saying it and it was like, that's also a very big intention for the summit. Mm-hmm. The split that you were talking about, the idea of being into environment, an activist, and then this other thing is kind of like coming up. For me, it was the same. Like, I was doing my PhD in like cultural historical psychology and how like the mind develops for 5 years, and it couldn't go through. Like I didn't finish. And it was a very dramatic experience to be 5 years into something that you feel is going to help education, and then it cannot be because there was a missing piece. And then at the same time, it was when I started with astrology. And the missing piece is that because it's about how human beings develop. And so my PhD is about that. And there wasn't, it's not complete. So I couldn't finish it. And the external circumstances, I can blame, right? Like, I couldn't finish because of this, I couldn't finish because of that. But no, it's just the project itself was flowing like crazy at the beginning. I went to international conferences in Russia, in Denmark, in Canada, and also to learn about this framework in psychology. But then at some point, it just got stuck. Because that's it. I learned what I needed to learn in order to continue with the project. And it's something that is there still, I haven't continued. But that split has been very painful for me, in the sense of like, I don't want to choose between my spiritual side and my academic side. I love going to conferences. I love intellectual conversations. Why do I have to give up to that? Because I do breath work and I see dragons in my journeys. And it's like, right. How do I merge both? Like, I don't want to choose anymore. I am possible and I'm both.
You are possible and you're both. You are both.
Yes. Yeah. And that is my call for everyone also who is listening. Yeah. Like, if we have been doing something for a long time and we love it as well, it's kind of like if you have been a doctor for 20 years, there is something there. And now when something else starts coming up, normally the reaction is to give up, right? Like to quit what we have done previously. But I feel there is like a soul, like that, the soul knew that you needed that training. So for me, it's like my soul knew that and when I was in high school, I wanted to write a book to change the world. And I started with a friend of mine who was like my platonic love. I started. And that book has been being written kind of like for more than 20 years, and it's not written and finished yet. Yeah. But life needed to happen. I have the vision when I was 16, but I didn't have the experience yet.
Right.
And it's like, how do we merge these? And these stories that we're telling, they seem personal, but each person that is listening to us have one story that is like this struggle between opposites. And it's like, how do we merge them to create something this unique and that we only can create, nobody else can do?
Beautiful. Yep.
I think it's such an important
thing. Maybe it's many things. What is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So for that, I think the grandmother can help us a lot to also like, what is it in each one of us who is ready now? And it's also like a poem that also keeps coming for the summit is Antonio Machado is like, walker. There is no path. The path is made by walking.
Yes, I love that one.
So you can have a vision, but we won't have a straight line into that vision, right? So it's like sometimes it's like that, and sometimes like magic happens, and then it takes it, and then at the end we are like, wow.
How did they get us there?
So let's allow magic to happen in general, individually, globally, culturally, internationally, cosmically. And then let's connect again with the stars. I love that idea also to the sky woman as well. Like there is feminine in the sky, and in the Egyptian mysteries, Nut is a sky goddess.
Yes, exactly. I love Nut. Love her. I have her on my altar. I want to say too, before we talk today, for some reason I was drawn to get the Isis Oracle, and the card I drew for us was Divine Sisterhood. It's fun.
Yes.
But I was like, why am I choosing the Isis? It's like, oh, of course, the Egyptian mysteries. Yes. So.
Yes. So let's go to meet this wonderful grandmother.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let's do this journey. And I just want to say that for the journey, I'm also bringing a beautiful stone from Shiny Rock Beach in the island of Haida Gwaii, and a beautiful little needle basket made by a Haida grandmother as a gift for the dream work we did together, and a little bit of shiitake mushroom, which grows native there. Just to say that, this is the earth part, right? This is the earth part. And we're going to do some sky journey. Okay, so let's start. I'm just going to invite everyone who's listening to close your eyes and to take a couple of just deep, nourishing breaths and allow your body to settle. And as you breathe, as you drop into just a natural soft breath, you allow yourself to feel the gift of gravity, the gift of the weight of our bodies, and the support of the chair or wherever you're seated, the support of that physical structure where you're seated, the support of the floor on the soles of your feet. So just taking a moment to just deeply center and ground. And as we soften, to bring our awareness to any part of our bodies where there might be any kind of tension. And again, to just allow that to soften and drop now. And now just take a moment to consider, as Maud and I were speaking, that split, or of the burden that we each carry in the places where we haven't really known sometimes how to bring together the different parts of ourselves. Just going to invite you to open your awareness to something in your life or something about who you are, where you might be carrying a burden, or you might feel split, or you might feel like I can be this, but I can't be that. The place where you feel like it's impossible to be who you are and to live as you wish to live, to do what you wish to do. Just, we're going to open up, we're going to open to receive a clear, maybe vision or words or clear understanding of what that looks like right now. What is that impossible thing for you right now? You might see yourself kind of feeling sad, feeling split between two different worlds. However, let yourself see yourself clearly in this place of challenge or of discomfort. And as you see and feel that, just holding that with softness and with compassion, with love, what feels impossible, whatever that impossible thing is. Okay, so now I'm going to invite you just almost like put your hands out in your imagination or even in front of your face and like cupped, like they're cupped, and see yourself right there in that place. Like you're a little person and you're feeling sad, whatever that is you're feeling about. You're holding yourself in your hands, right? And then you're going to kind of put that little you in your pocket. Imagine you're putting that you in your pocket. Okay. Now I'm going to invite you to open your inner eye, because we're going to take a journey. And I'm going to invite you to imagine, to look in front of you, and you're going to see a cloud of fog, of beautiful mist. And you're now going to walk through this mist. And so as you do, it's like a cloud. So as you walk through, it's just white. It's kind of damp, but it feels pretty magical. And now as you walk through the fog, you see there is a beautiful ocean before you. As you step out of the fog, you see that it's a beautiful ocean. You look around and you see you're in the Pacific Northwest. You're actually on the island, the beautiful island of Haida Gwaii, and you're on the beach where the Haida people say that the world was born. As you look into the beautiful ocean, you might even imagine that ocean foam woman is underneath those ocean waves, as are all the other supernatural beings that the Haida people know live in the ocean. And know that they are with you now and that they are there. And now you're going to turn to your left, and you see a beautiful dead tree, a log of a tree with lots of moss and green and ferns. And you follow the length of this big tree that's fallen. And as you do, you find a little path. This little path goes into the big, beautiful, deep forest of the big, beautiful green trees, the western red cedar trees, enormous, ancient, wise. You find this beautiful little path, and all of a sudden you see it, a wonderful, beautiful house made of cedar bark. It's a long house. And you know that this is where the Haida people live traditionally. You come to the door, there's a little door, and you enter, and then you walk into this longhouse, and you see a beautiful little Haida grandmother, and she's seated at a table, at a little wooden table. This beautiful little grandmother from this place. And so you sit in front of her. And as you sit in front of her, you might actually recognize that she is Haida. You might instead recognize that she looks a lot like a grandmother from your own ancestry. If you are of white European ancestry, she may appear as someone who is from ancient Europe, Mother Europe. She is one of your vital, healthy, whole, healed ancestors. Or you might see her as a beautiful Haida grandmother. In any case, you see this beautiful grandmother, and she is the one who's here to help you remember something important about who you are and what is possible for you. And as she looks into your eyes now, and she's so beautiful, you see her beautiful hands with all those lines. You see the wisdom in her face. You see the kindness in her eyes. And she's got some fire too, and she has a good sense of humor. And now she takes a bowl. It's a beautiful ceramic bowl, or it's a wooden bowl. It's some kind of a traditionally made bowl, and it's filled with the most beautiful water, sparkling clear water. She shows it to you, and she says, beautiful, beautiful granddaughter, look into this water. This is magical water. I'm going to invite you to look into this water, and when you do, you are going to see yourself in that little sad you that's in your pocket. I'm going to invite you now to take that little sad you out and to hold her in your hand just for a moment and bless her. Know that just send her lots of love. And then you're going to put her into this water in this bowl and let her just dissolve and turn into light. And as she does now, the grandmother invites you, she says, look into the water of this bowl. And now that you yourself, you've allowed the burden that you've carried to dissolve into this magical water, which is still just as clear and just as beautiful. Now allow yourself to see something in this water, a vision, an image arise. And so now you look into this water and you see that it's cloudy for a moment, and then it becomes clear, and what you see is a vision. Perhaps you might see words, a message of hope, of support. You might see a vision of yourself in the future, a future you. That future you who is living the dream of who it is and what it is that you wish to be doing. That you who has successfully integrated the different parts of yourself. Whatever it is that you see is the most amazing, miraculous unfolding of what is possible that you once believed to be impossible. You see what is possible for you now, that possibility that feels as real as the skin on your finger, and you can pinch it now. What you see is just as real as you are, and it gives you a feeling of delight, gives you a feeling, shiver maybe down your spine, maybe goosebumps. You take it in, you feel it in your body. This is real. This is what is possible for you. So I'm just going to give you a moment to see that vision, to see those words, whatever it is in this water, this image, this moving, alive gift showing you what is possible for you. Just take a minute to let that be and let it arise and fill your mind and fill your eyes and fill your heart with vivid color, with the truth of what you are and the possibility of who you are. As the impossible becomes radiantly possible. As this vision comes to completion, as you drink in enough with your eyes, your inner eyes, of this vision to help you remember what it tastes like, what it looks like, what it feels like, what it smells like, for you to be living what you thought was impossible as a possibility. And now, when you're ready, you look up from the bowl into the eyes of your beloved grandmother. Take her hands, thank her for gratitude for this gift, for wisdom. And when you're ready, you will leave the little hut, the longhouse, however it appears to you now. Step out the door, back into the beautiful green forest, back along the trail, back to the gorgeous ocean where the world begins. And now that ocean is obscured by a fog, and you walk into that fog, into that cloud bank, back into the room where you began, back into your body if you have in any way left your body. Everything comes back down and in now into your heart, our consciousness centered in our hearts, our presence deep in our womb. And we bring back that vivid vision. And if you want to take a moment now when you're ready to open your eyes, and if you can find a piece of paper or a journal, you might want to write down or sketch images of whatever you saw that's most important. So take time to do that, even if it's a few words. And enjoy this experience of living and being the impossibly, amazingly impossible, possible radiant being that you are. Blessed be.
Thank you so much. I love it.
You're so welcome.
And here is like when I open my eyes, because it's like the sun is rising and I have it now like in front. And then for you is sunset, right? So like we are bringing also like these two sides of the world together. And then a song came to me that I will share in the video afterwards as well, that it says like heal your family. It repeats, it's in Spanish and in indigenous language, I think.
Beautiful.
I'm not sure what's the other language, and it came, so I will share with people as well, because it says cura, cura, cura mi familia. That means heal my family. Yeah. I think it's a very well-known song.
I love that song.
Yeah. And every time at the end, it says, thank you for my life.
Yes.
Every time I hear that sentence, I cry. And even because it's like, sometimes it's so hard, right? To be in this reality. Sometimes it's so hard that it's like, thank you for my life.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you for each person's life who are watching us. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for the sun. It's like, and I will just, and then thank you to our grandmother and the ocean and everything that was here today. And I would love to encourage people also to share with us what was their dream. We will create somehow a way for to share that impossible dream, so we can kind of like ignite each other.
Yeah, absolutely. That will be very fun.
Yes.
I love that the sun is in your face now, illuminating you.
I will. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's meant to be that I have the sun.
Wow, that's great.
So
Mar, thank you so much for this.
Yes. And the same. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's magic happen. So please, everyone, like we can do so many things. We can be so many things together. So it's like, yes. Thank you.